No, I just thought it looked kind of, but brightened it back instead of seeing the back of my kitchen wall. So it's funny. I play with this stuff every once in a while. I'll find something.
So George, she's to keep her off of politics. She's gone nuts on TikTok. Thank you, TikTok. She's been doing that. So that's what kept her stuff going down.
That and the gym.
Yeah. All right. So Terry, give me 3 seconds. Victoria.
Okay. Is Victoria joining?
Yeah, she's coming back. See.
Okay.
It's so important. She canceled her studio time. She's going later.
Awesome.
She didn't want to miss you. Sorry, this is Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More, Worldwide TV Network, iTube 247 out of Franklin, Tennessee. WomenOnTV.tv, iTube 247. I said that. See, I'm so excited, George, that I'm tongue-tied. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora. What am I missing, Terry? Everything, right?
Yes, everything. This is an exciting time. This year is we've been blessed this year with all the crazy stuff going on. So I'm very excited. We've worked really hard to get here.
We have, and
Congrats.
we kicked ass during the pandemic and everything. So we decided, I guess George liked us so much, and vice versa, we had to do a part 2 right away. And
awesome.
People, you don't want to lose them when you got that momentum, and this is very, very important for Soho Johnny's event, Andrew Cole Music, obviously the stuff that you're creating coming up. George, tell us who you are and who you perform with as that record producer and that Grammy winner.
I'm George Pajon Jr. My band is called CairoKnifeFight.com, and I've been also blessed to be a part of the Black Eyed Peas since 1998. So I've been there through every show, every record. So that's what I do. As far as producing and writing, I've also been blessed to work with some of my heroes, Carlos Santana, Sting. I played 2 songs on John Legend's first album, 2 songs on his second album. The list goes on and on. I've had a very blessed and wonderful career.
I've always said the happiest people I've ever met has been the songwriters. One of the best award shows I've ever went at was the APSCAP Awards.
Yeah.
I've never in my life seen so many happy songwriters that people would never know who they are, but they recognize and listen to their songs. You feel the same way?
Absolutely. It's different now. I'll be honest. Songwriting has taken a very interesting, different turn in the industry. When those award shows were happening and people were selling physical copies of the songs that they wrote, it was a lot more joy then. It's a lot different now. And streaming has it's a blessing and a curse, because I believe that it's the wild, wild west now, where you're in control. You have to do it all yourself. You have to be the record producer, the writer, the artist, the promotion guy, the creator of the artwork. It's just everything is up to you. And that, if you have the ability to do that, is a wonderful thing, because it used to be something that was controlled by someone else. It used to be like, you're going to do this, and no, that's not. We want it this way. We're the ones paying you.
Dance monkey kind of
Yeah, exactly.
You had no control. But here it's weird, because it's like good and bad. Like, so like when you had an album though, you were getting paid once, right? But now that it's streaming, if you're one of those very small percentage of people, you get paid every time it happens. So that's supposed to be good, but again, it's like the number that artists make, especially artists, but also songwriters, of the it's such a small amount. It's like insane. You have to have like 1 billion streams to make any money.
Yes, and you know what? We don't even know what that is. And me personally, because I'll give, for example, one of the Cairo Knife Fight songs has 30 million views or something, and on YouTube, but we had never seen a dime from that. So where is that? Everyone says we've never seen a dime from that.
No, that seems wrong.
It sure does, doesn't it?
That's
But
not correct.
I've had attorneys
sure
chase
does,
it.
Skippy. That's
I've had attorneys
writing a
chase
strongly worded letter. Yeah.
I've had attorneys chase
what
it,
happened?
management, and that maybe it's stuck in the conversation of that song was owned by Warner Brothers in New Zealand and Australia, and maybe they took that money, because I don't know, but we can't get a straight answer. But all that to say, that's not.
But the song is registered to your ASCAP, right? To your.
It was registered.
Then it should be going to your IP.
It was registered in a different country, so it was
That's fine, no
registered
problem.
Oh,
in New
I don't
Zealand
know. Yeah.
before me.
Got it.
But the interesting thing is, yes, you're right in what you're saying, but back when things were, let's say 2003, when Where's the Love went to #1, you just didn't get paid once. You got paid from sync licenses, from mechanicals, from publishing, from royalties, from the actual spins on the radio. It's way different.
But
now,
I mean the physical, like selling a, yeah.
Exactly, selling a CD.
Mhm.
But from what I understand, and which is why I decided I stopped being a producer and producing for other people, because let's say you produce a song for whoever, Ariana Grande or whatever. She gets 800 million streams. That goes to the artist, does not go to the producer. The producer's share on that is ridiculous. It's like 0.00000069.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So what's the point in that? Like,
I've never had to deal with getting like production points, because I'm not as talented as you and I don't produce my own music. So that's news to me. I didn't know that.
I started seeing that the artists, like, I know that there's a very there's a very popular like story out there where I think it was Wrecking Ball, the song that made so much noise, but the writer barely
Didn't
made
make money.
$1,000 on that song, because the streams go to the artist. They don't go to the writers. They don't go to the producers.
Oh, wow.
The writers get a very small amount of the streams. So why would you write for anyone other than yourself at this point? And so that's why I was very actively searching for a band when I found Cairo Knife Fight. Where Cairo Knife Fight basically found me. You know,
how did you meet Nick?
In our last interview, I was gonna talk about this, and Brian said, let's keep that for part 2. So, because it's a wonderful story in itself. The last show that Fergie did with the Black Eyed Peas was on November 23rd, 2011. And so, as far as I was concerned, once she left, we didn't do any work for almost 5.5, 10 years, as the group Black Eyed Peas. So I was asked to go to New Zealand at that show, and I was so excited to come home and be like, oh man, I get to see my wife, and I'm not going to be on the road for a little while. I was super excited about that, and they asked me to go to New Zealand to write with this artist. The money that he offered was too good to pass up, so I went. And I moved to New Zealand he wanted me there for 6 months.
Whoa.
And so while I was there, I met these 2 engineers, and we were working in Roundhead Studios, which is owned by Neil Finn from Crowded House. Wonderful studio. And I met these 2 wonderful engineers. And then that guy I was working for got arrested by the United States government.
Oh, wow.
What?
And I ran back from New Zealand to the United States. And
oh my God. Fast
forward to the people that I was working with over there, I was friends with, and I started seeing them put videos on Instagram, and they were working with this amazing board. I'm like, okay, either this is the same situation that was in New Zealand that just moved over here, or you robbed a bank. So I went to that studio. Lo and behold, those 2 wonderful engineers are now in Los Angeles. And I'm like, what are you guys doing here? They're like, oh, we moved. We live here now. I'm like, oh, awesome. Where do you guys stay? In the floor of the studio. I'm like, wait, you don't have anywhere to sleep? Guess what? I have a house in front of my studio that's empty. You guys want to rent that? So they move into the house in front of my studio that I've had my studio there for over 30 years, and I've been the guy that's, you know, kept the people in that house so they won't complain when I'm playing guitar at 5 in the morning. So I had to always,
that's a good, yeah.
Yeah, it had to always be musical people there.
Yeah.
So those guys moved in there, and they kept telling me about this guy, Nick Gaffney. And I said, okay, you know, I'd love to meet him. So they asked me, they had one other roommate, and they asked me, is it possible to have this roommate give him like the 60-day notice so we can move in our friend Nick Gaffney? And so I did, and Nick moves in. I had no idea what he does, and I'm producing this band, and they kind of sound a little bit like Tool. So I'm in there and I'm working. I take a break, walk outside my studio, and Nick is sitting outside in the backyard. And he's like, George, if you don't mind me asking, what's going on in there? I'm like, oh, I'm just producing this band. Who's playing drums? And I introduce him to the drummer. Who's playing guitar? Oh, that's me. Wait a minute. You play that heavy stuff? I'm like, oh man, I never bought a hip hop record in my life. That's just my, you know, it was a relationship I had that turned into what the P's are, and I was lucky to be a part of it. And I'll explain what my role in that band is in a second. I grew up listening to Maiden and Sabbath, and he's like, oh my God, we need to talk. So he texts me that night, the name of the band. Would you like to write with me? I have to do a record for this band. And I started Googling and YouTubing concerts, and I was just floored. This was like 3 o'clock in the morning. My wife was on a job, and she comes back and she's like, what is that? I'm like, this guy asked me to write. She's like, that's the band you need to be in. And so I went back to that house. I said, I don't want to write with you. I want to join the band. Like, wait, why would you join my small little band when you're like playing stadiums? I'm like, well, that's Will's baby. I've always wanted to play in a band that was like this. Life took me in a different direction, and I'm very grateful for that. But this is where my heart is. This is my music. And so that's where that relationship started, literally in my backyard. All I was doing was being kind. I was, you know, those people were really nice to me in New Zealand, and I was trying to return the favor, finding them a stable place to live. You know, that they were going to be able to be the same people they were over there. You know, I have a studio in their backyard. So yeah, did they work? They work there all the time. They've done projects out of there. And so it just became this amazing family of creativity that led to, you know, me joining Cairo Knife Fight and what I'm about to do. Brian, did I explain to you the concept of what I've done so many interviews for this?
No. I'm waiting to hear that.
So we wrote 20 songs, started writing in December of last year, and we just tracked all 20 songs. We wrote them complete finished ideas in my studio. So 20 complete with lyrics, vocals, everything done. But my studio is so small that I literally sit next to Nick's drum set. So all the drum mics have guitars in them. All the guitar mics have drums in them. So we had to go and replay all 20 songs to be able to mix and have individual parts to mix. So we were blessed and lucky to track it at Dave Grohl's 606 Studios. So 606 Studios is basically the Sound City board from that documentary. It's from that very, very famous studio. So like Dave Grohl did Teen Spirit on that board. That's where we recorded the 20 songs for the Cairo Knife Fight records that we're about to release. So there's going to be 10 songs on one album, 10 songs on the other album. We're going to pretty much release, if the release schedule is up to us, because there's interest and management's going to shop it first. If we have to release it ourselves, we'll release one song a month until 6 months, then release the whole album, because we want to be able to be considered for, you know, the awards of Grammys, and more importantly, New Zealand. When we release records, they have been very kind to us and nominated us for New Zealand Music Awards. So we want to be
Awesome.
eligible for that. So we'll do that every year with these 20 songs recorded. And then I'm taking the top 8 of those songs and reimagining them. And each song is going to be between 10 and 14 minutes long, something like that. And then I'm bringing in friends for that record. So on that record, you know, I'll have my favorite singers, my favorite guitar players, my favorite, you know, drummers, and we'll reimagine each song, make it a long artistic version of the original song. And then the 4th record is going to be, I'm taking all those pieces that I have created over this time and handing it over to other producers. One of them is going to be Will, and have him do a remix of it. Because Will's a fan of this band, and in the last tour, he's like, "Hey man, I told him, I was like, I can't continue to, you know, to do these long tours with you because I'm literally ignoring my band when we go on tour together. So why don't you help me?" And he's like, "Well, I don't want to do just one song. Let's do a record. You've been in my band for 22 years. Let's just get in the studio and write 7 songs together." Well, we both had the intention of doing that, but the peas blew up again and they became super busy again. And so I think the best way to accomplish that goal that we both have is to just hand him these 20 pieces of music and say, go for it. Treat it like a sample. Tie it up with a bow. Yeah, go for it. Even if you only want to do one song, just treat it like you're sampling a record, and he'll create a remix of one of those songs. And then I'll have them on that. And then all the people that I have been, you know, lucky and blessed to actually have worked with, like I worked with Ty Dolla $ign before when he had a band called Ty and Corey. And I was doing sessions with him for free for, you know, almost 10 songs. So now I'm going to reach out to him and be like, "Hey, can you be on this?"
Remember that one time I helped you out? Help me out.
That remix album. And, you know, I'm going to reach out to a couple of my friends that I've had the blessings of working in the past and see who I can get on that record. But that'll be the 4th installment of
so cool.
all this music that we created in this pandemic. Is that the thing is, I was already isolated. Essentially, when I start recording a record, I set myself a pretty, you know, structured schedule. Like I wake up in the morning, have breakfast, say bye to my wife, go to the studio, come back for lunch, we eat together, go back to the studio, come back for dinner, we watch some, you know, TV together. She goes to bed, I go back to the studio. That was my schedule from December of last year. Then March happens, and what happened for me is it never got interrupted. I never had to go on the road. I never had to leave my studio. And so we created so much music, and it was a blessing. And I feel so guilty to say that because that's not the story for everyone else. But it was a blessing for me to not be interrupted during probably my most creative time that I've ever experienced in my life.
What perfect timing. I mean, like you really like got handed this thing and made it into something awesome. You know,
I can't wait for the world to hear it. I still have so much work ahead of me, but it's a wonderful mountain to climb.
And it might be worth all of the work ahead of you because you own all of your own stuff.
Yeah. And it's only 2 people, so it's literally shared by 2 people. So I own 50% of everything, which is, I had mentioned it on our first show together that I wanted to figure out a way that I could do music in a band scenario that it was as close to the DJ way of life as possible. What do I mean by that? Well, the DJ needs 1 hotel room, 1 plane ticket, and he carries a backpack and a USB stick, and he's making more money than bands are. And so I was like, how do I do that? Well, there's only 2 of us. So the only difference between us and the DJ is we need 1 more room, 1 more plane ticket. You literally can stick us in a crew bus and pull a trailer with our gear, and we're 100% self-sufficient. I learned while touring with the Peas that a lot of the bands that would open up for us and labels would put in front of us, because, you know, most of those bands are decided by the label you're on. I never did anything. And why was that? Well, they had like 8 members. So they ran through their money that the
Oh.
label gave them to tour within the first year. And the only guys that would actually succeed were the DJs that were doing sets before us, because
well, I would
cost us
think,
anything.
I would think, because everything is changing with, everything in entertainment, but, and I'll ask this to Victoria too. Don't you think it is kind of good for you guys because you have more control over this and you have more control of bringing your money in, and you're more of a business person now?
It's a double-edged sword.
Well, the production companies take a lot of your money. And so I don't know. I just think that this is giving you more freedom to have more control of, of your baby and your project. Because you hear so many horror stories of artists that just, get rocked. So I just was kind of.
To answer your question, Terry, you're 100% right. But unfortunately, yes, I have control of anything I want to do right now. But if you make any kind of noise, then you have no choice but to sign some kind of partnership with someone. And I'll give you a perfect example. Every venue in the world is owned by one or two of the big major entities, which is Live Nation or the other one. So you can't, if you get big like Bruno Mars, at some point you're gonna have to play those venues. They own them. So you got to strike a deal with one of those, and then your control is gone. So for me, what I told management, it's like, look, for this to work properly, and for any project to work really well and properly, you need the basic promotion monster that those labels have. So
it's a machine.
Yeah, it's a machine that they've had for many years, and it works. And
they have relationships, and they have in-house departments. But the thing is you have to make all of the noise. You basically have to do everything that they would do to get signed. And then when you get signed, you don't, but by the time they want you, you don't really even need the labels anymore because you've already done everything on your own and it's made a big noise. But then it's like, that's why I was saying it's like a double-edged sword. It's like, I need you to help me to make this. And then I need this to help me. It's confusing, but
I've been lucky to be part of many projects that I was a part of them when they weren't famous and then became household names. One of them is the Black Eyed Peas. The other one is Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars was recording in my studio because he was signed to a manager that was my friend, and he asked me to write with him. My dumbass, excuse me, said no. Because at the time I had been working, because I had a publishing deal. I got a publishing deal as soon as Where's the Love went to #1. And I got courted by a lot of the major publishing companies. I signed with EMI Publishing. They no longer exist, but that's how much the world has changed. But back then, every place that we would go to play, I would have a big old basket of fruit and flowers and everything from EMI and studio address. So after I got off stage, I'd go straight to the studio and work with one of their artists. And I did this every day for almost a year. By the time that Bruno was presented to me, I was like, I'm done. I can't pull this double duty anymore, but I'll help you by letting you use my studio for free, because I know that costs you money to be able to get this kid to write with other producers. So they worked in my studio, and Bruno met his top line writer, Phil, at my studio. So I watched that go from nothing, he didn't even have a deal, to Bruno Mars.
Wow.
And I've seen it happen many times where the same thing happened to him. Bruno was, killing it when I Want to Be a Millionaire was his first hit writing for someone else. Then all of a sudden he had to partner, because they just won't let you even play those venues. You have to strike a deal. So for me, it's, if someone can come in now and see, why would someone take me out? Well, because I believe that the vision I have is more than a 5 to 10 year plan. So you're not just getting a band that is gonna, okay, well, we gotta put them in a studio with producers. We gotta do, no, we do all of that. We're a complete in-house team.
Nice.
We have everything. We have artwork people, video people. We have everything. And if you look at our videos and stuff, it's a concept. We have a mascot. So people ask me, hey, how are you going to promote friends of mine? You're going to do this remix album. That seems to me like if you pull that off, that's going to have the most legs than the other parts of your project. How would you promote that? I got that covered too. We have a mascot. Here, I'll pull up a picture. And this is one of the things that I was so impressed with Nick. I can't find it now, but you can look for it later. Basically, it's a guy in a suit, and he has medical bandages over his head. And it's that guy is on every album, every promotional, but we do different things to his head. Sometimes we light the head on fire. Sometimes the head is in an underwater mask, but you never see this guy's head.
Cool.
Well, that's how we promote it.
Oh,
Is it this guy? Is it that?
That's
Yes.
Go
awesome.
forever.
Yes,
You could be
So-
110 and still doing these shows.
exactly. Exactly. So it'd be
Awesome.
that guy. We become DJs then, and we promote that record. And hey, doesn't it make sense if that blows up? Then I just do double duty. I open up for the P's, and then I play the show with them as well.
I was already
No.
on tour with you
That's
anyway.
awesome.
Now I'm just gonna open too. So it's your music, your baby. It's like you're already on tour. That's such a perfect situation to be in. And then all these people that you've worked with and all the relationships that you've developed, and now they've all come to this place now where they can be on your records too. And now you have free cross promotion.
Yeah,
Awesome. Perfect.
that's why I'm entertaining getting in a partnership with some company or an investment situation with someone that wants to be a part of this vision that I have. It's not just a band. Like that picture that you just showed, Brian, that could be a comic book.
Absolutely.
That's another
It is a
thing I
comic
want to
book.
do. I want that guy. Why we have him? We do different things to that person. We call him Mr. Blitz. Why we do different things to Mr. Blitz is because that's going to be every one of those things that you see him. It's going to be different powers, a different person, different comic book hero.
He's like the Spice Girls. There's like a different flavor for every girl, you know?
Yes,
With
absolutely.
a Band-Aid.
And it's just an unlimited, endless amount of. It no longer is a band. It's more of a global corporation thing.
A movement.
A movement.
Yep.
Exactly right. And so that's what I'm selling. I'm not just selling records. Do I have content? I have content for like 3-4 years that I'm going to give you. So you're not just signing a band for this record. No, you're signing this big vision that I have that can work. And it can work because
I'm sold.
How do you get, for example, I worked with John Legend. I did 2 songs on his first record, 2 songs on his second record. We're friends. Do I call John Legend? No. But when he sees me, he hugs me and it's like, hey, George, how you been? How's your wife? How do you get him to be on that? Well, you just have to legitimize it. You have to have a company that's behind you that makes those phone calls. And it's no longer, will you do this? It's pick a date because you're going to be on this and it's for him. And this is for real. We're putting, all this machine behind it. So it's going to help you and help them. So that's the process now not my job. That's Gary's job, my manager. But, if we have to do it ourselves, we do it ourselves. And we have that too.
Yeah.
And like this amazing vehicle here. This is how you do it nowadays. You create relationships and you get people to believe in your crazy vision and you have to have it. When people ask me, what's your big advice if someone wants to get in the music business, the first thing I say is don't. Number one, nowadays you have to afford to be able to be an artist because no one's going to help you do it. No one's going to give it to you. There's no record deals that say, okay, here's your budget. That used to be, we're signing you for a 3-album deal. The first album is going to be, you have a budget of $250,000. If that does something, we'll bump that up to $1 million. If it does something else, we bump it up another $1 million. That's the way it used to be. Now you don't. So the only way you can do it is to create relationships. And those relationships are the ones that help you and you help them. And it's just, it's a symbiotic relationship that you have to create by yourself.
George,
So do you don't blatantly ask them, you have your manager asks, I mean, is it just that simple, just to be like, hey John, can you play on my record?
I think it's disrespectful to do that, because then you're
Yeah.
asking
That's
him
why
to
I'm
do,
asking.
yeah, you're asking him to do a favor, personal favor for you.
Yeah, how do you make it so it's not a personal favor?
well,
I
here,
think what I'm
so
asking.
Victoria, let me interrupt you real quick. George, you're the first person, and I've done over 80,000 interviews, literally. You're the first person to talk about what Movie Reviews and More is doing. So Victoria and Terri, you see what he's talking about?
Yep.
Jockey? That's why I have DJ Badass with her. That's why I wanted in the studio with you, Victoria, when you met Andrew. George is talking about exactly what Movie Reviews and More. So when we went to Tennessee, we shot in Jimmy's little place. We built it up. I built it up the night before, literally. We did 6 those 3 shows that you're on, Victoria, 1.7 views. The 3, the 4 that Terry's on, over 3 million views. That's exactly what George has been talking about. He's the first person to get it where we are today. And George, that's why we're doing so well, because people don't understand how we do what we do. You're the only person who's described, besides me having to tell people what to do, because I'm telling them and it doesn't make any sense to them. They don't get it.
I believe personally, we can do it without the help. And I believe that this has so much depth, and the story is so deep, and everything that the music is has a lot of depth. But I eventually you're going to have to partner up with someone anyway. So why not start the relationship now? And the other benefit of my band that not any other band has, other than I'll name them: Royal Blood, and the redhead singer that controls radio. I can't think of it right now. His name right now. Anyways, he's one person.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran. So
yeah,
Ed
I was like, he can sing.
performs by himself. So why he's so successful? He can share with up to 4 to 5 different companies and still makes more money than someone that was in a band, because even the Black Eyed Peas, that is shared 4 ways. With my band, it's only me and Nick. So we own 50% of each song. So you can afford to bring in a third party. They could be the third member of the band and we still keep 33 and the third percent. So all of this has been calculated. I've watched the industry. I've watched it, being lucky enough to be in a successful band. And I've watched the mistakes that other people make, and I'm trying not to make those and use the positive things that I learned by being in the Black Eyed Peas to help me create something that can have a long-lasting, career.
So Terry and Victoria, again, what he just said, you guys watched me go through Hollywood Film Festival stuff. I watched that they did, the companies that I brought to them that they never closed. So I said, if you guys can't do it, it's like the end of Thanos at the game, the Avengers. Never mind, just do it myself. So this is where our sponsorships come in. This is where we are now. That's why I was going after all those sponsors. And George, you've seen this. No one knows what you're doing behind the scenes, talking to these sponsors, and you can't really ask for those favors. You have to go through the legal channels.
Yes.
That's what I want to know more about.
Well, it's what he was just saying. That's what I've been doing the last 2 years. It's a lot.
Yeah. I just like, how can you ask them without it being a favor? How can you talk about that?
To go through the proper legal channels. So you have management that reaches out to their management, and they'll tell you what it's going to cost. And you have to raise that money to make it an actual date, an actual real event. Otherwise, look, even no matter how close you are to that person has a schedule, and that person, that schedule is predetermined for sometimes years in advance. So it's not that he doesn't want to do it. He just you have to be fit into that schedule the proper way.
Money talks. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I can't tell you how many times people come up to me and it's like, yo, can you get Will.i.am to do a drop on my remix album? And I'm like, look,
I can't.
Here's his manager's email. go ahead
Yeah.
and pitch it to him, because I can't do that. It's
I just
actually disrespectful for
the
me to do that.
anxiety. Yeah, the amount of that's why I was asking you, because I was just like especially artists that I respect so much, to be like, hey, I don't think I could fit, the words wouldn't come out of my mouth to ask. Like, I'd have to be like, yo, here you go. Here is your like day rate, whatever.
Exactly.
I have
That's
a hard
what
time asking people for favors as is.
No, look, I know we're
I don't
running
like
out of
it.
time, but I'll give you a perfect example. Getting into 606 Studios, I know Dave Grohl. I've seen him on tours, and we stayed at the Peas and the Foo Fighters stayed at the same hotel in London every time we were doing festivals in Europe. So I would see him at the bar, and we'd have drinks together. But I don't have his phone number, and I don't have a personal relationship with him. But I wanted to get into 606 Studios. How I got in there was by making a friend of another friend, and we all loved the Dodgers. We all went to a game together. They enjoyed my company, and I kept that going for a year before I had management ask him, who works as the engineer at 606 Studios, to give us a tour.
Wow.
He didn't know I was coming in. I was just another client. As soon as I came in, it was like, George.
Hey.
And he appreciated that I went through the proper channels and had a proper introduction, and I got a proper rate. I had a rate to pay to be in that studio. And that's why I was able to get in there.
Good.
But it took a while and to develop those relationships to even be able to record there.
I had the same thing, George, with whether it's George Clooney or whatever. I have a great relationships with a lot of the people, but I always said, as that journalist, as of 2 years and forward, couldn't ask you for your email or your phone number. One, it was disrespectful. Two, you just said that trust is earned over time. Now,
absolutely,
all coming now. It's not like I didn't know them. I wasn't supposed to do that. So yes, that is going to happen for you. You don't have to say anything. What all those things going like that?
And think about that person, whoever it may be. If it's Bruno or if it's Dave Grohl, don't you think when he gets approached the right way that he's going to be so much more receptive, because I respected that? It's almost like a silent understanding between all people that are in that small circle. Just don't.
I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
It's hard enough to get those kinds of like people of that caliber on a record, period. But then asking for a favor, you just can't. I want this to be mutually beneficial for all parties involved.
Well, even beyond that, wouldn't it be cooler if he wanted to do it? Just you make the noise first.
Yeah.
It's like you make the noise first, and he wants to be a part of it just because
that's why I had
it's a
that
cool
reaction
project.
when you said that about Will. Yeah, exactly.
Just make it cool.
That's pretty awesome.
We got about 60 seconds. That's exactly what happened to Andrew. He wanted to come on the show. I didn't know who he was, and Victoria was there. I mean, why would I want to say no? We're supposed to be helping people. That's how it happened.
Absolutely.
In effect.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I
feel called.
I have a saying before we go, and me and my wife have a saying, and this is how I want to run this band, Cairo Knife Fight. We always have a saying. It used to be, what would Frank do? Speaking about Frank Sinatra. Now I say, what would Grohl do? Because he runs that company so amazingly, and his band so amazingly, that's what I want to match and be. I want to help people. And when people come to work for us, when this band gets to where I believe it will be, those will be 30, 40-year relationships.
Absolutely.
Just like Grohl has.
So with that,
those are invaluable.
George, I want to thank you. You're more than welcome. You have my phone number to reach out to us anytime. Victoria, thank you. This is Brian Sebastian, Movie Reviews and More. If you see someone out of smile, please give them one of yours, because the world needs it, and we will see you next week.
Thank you.